Okay, welcome to the April 27th Town Center and Library Committee. We have a quorum, and we have a couple of guests. I don't see any public comments. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
I just have something I wanted to bring up from the library about the landscape design.
Okay. Can you do that afterwards, or is it important for the architects to hear it?
It might be good for Andrew to hear, actually.
Quick?
Go for it.
Quick.
Okay,
It's quick.
yeah, go for it.
So Andrew, there's two parts to this email I received from Jennifer from the library. She's a staff person. Before all this town center campus stuff happened, they had reached out to a professor at UVM who has a landscape design class. And I don't know if you know Stephanie Hurley. She's the teacher at UVM.
I don't personally. I recognize
Anyway,
the
they
name.
had an exchange about getting her students involved in designing the back lot of the library.
Okay.
And no, I think we need to put them on hold for a while because I think Hodgson, I think this is, I don't know. I just wanted to run that by you in case you knew Stephanie and had any input. And
I
then the
don't,
other
but we
thing-
could definitely connect with Jeff and Cynthia and see if they would be interested in collaborating.
I mean, I don't know.
Can you give me 1 second? John is actually calling me. He's supposed to be on
Okay.
this, so hold on a second.
Yeah, I mean,
They
I.
may
think
already
it's-
be working on the volunteer screen.
Oh, are they?
There is a UVM class, a landscape
But-
class. that's
Yeah, I
working.
think this is the only one, so that's probably it, and that's fine. That would be, my temptation was to say thanks.
Probably, yeah.
We have some professionals involved in this project.
Yeah, and our landscape design is more than aesthetics. It's,
Mhm.
stormwater runoff.
Right.
Drainage and.
Are you ready, Andrew, or are you still talking? No. Looks like he's listening to John.
So John is calling into this, he's zooming in.
Okay. Yeah, he was just the hidden agenda thing got him.
Okay.
There he is.
And then the other thing is that Jennifer is the library has been working with a group to obtain a sustainability certification for the
Yeah.
library. And part of that, it has some requirements for if you redesign your landscape, and I think it's very basic, like using native plants and that kind of thing. But she's going to forward it to me and I'll pass it on to you.
Okay.
We don't have to do all of them. It's a checklist thing, and the more you check off, the better your certification is.
Yeah, I would add to that when we get to the point where we're talking about species and plants, which we're a little bit away from that.
Mm.
But when we're talking about that, there's considerable interest in town. Particularly by at least one individual.
Yeah.
Who's very interested in what species we're talking about.
Yeah.
So that's just something to keep in mind.
Okay.
And I think all of that can happen after the bond vote, frankly.
Oh, yeah. yeah.
What species it's not,
Yeah.
It's gonna be
necessarily
a long time till we need.
Yeah.
Yes.
Trees and stuff.
before we need trees.
I know. I just wanted to bring that up because Jennifer is leaving in May, so.
Okay. One of the things that I might, if we have time, and we might not have time, I had a thought on our ask for the ARPA committee that might be simpler than
Huh.
trying to estimate what the
Yeah.
cost of net zero is.
Okay.
Maybe I'll mention that now because it's relevant to these guys as well. So, my understanding of going to net zero is pretty complicated. We may be talking about building an extra stud wall, and re-trimming out all the windows and it could be quite complicated. Another way to get there, or at least to accomplish the goal of trying to offset some of our operating costs, might be to do solar. Do solar on the roof and maybe a solar canopy. Much easier to estimate what the cost would be. And try to figure out how much we would need to offset our electricity costs. And that might fulfill some of the interest in in this is trying to reduce operating costs.
Mm,
And we can get an estimate from, several different solar installers pretty quickly because they're interested in doing that kind of stuff. So, we don't have to decide on that tonight, but that was a thought
mhm.
that I had that might be simpler, and perhaps I'll bring it up as an agenda item at our next meeting.
Mhm.
Okay, I think we're looking. Open petitions are items for president, town center rent design. You guys are up.
Mhm.
Okay, what we were going to talk about is scheduling, primarily scheduling, seeing where we are relative to our original schedule, and what milestones you guys see you need in order to continue on with your work.
Mhm.
So Andrew, you want to take it from there?
Mhm.
Yeah, or John.
No, Andrew does.
Well, I think so Jeff, you started talking about one of many things that we kind of need to dive into pretty quickly. So I think we're going to back out to some big picture.
Andrew, just a minute. I see that Karen Yagi is signed on. Karen, did you have any? Nope. Did you have any public comment that you wanted to make before we get started?
No, not at all. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. I'm sorry, Andrew, go ahead.
That's okay. So I think what we're going to show here is a somewhat incomplete schedule, and we're going to move some stuff around as we talk. But I think as John and I were working through this, there were more questions than answers, I think, that we wanted to kind of focus on.
Mhm.
And the first, I think, is of the known things that you've told us so far, Jeff, you were kind of initially targeting a mid-June select board meeting to
That was
present.
totally arbitrary, really.
Okay.
Mhm.
And I think maybe we're unsure of what that date. Okay, it sounds like arbitrary. So I think from what you've told us, John, I think you would agree with this, that from what you said you hope to present to them, it seems like we have everything that we need to have a first meeting with them and essentially summarize the path that we've taken over the past 6 months and how we've gotten to where we are today. And then whether or not decisions are made at that meeting, we could at least present them with some of the big variables that we know are what decisions that will have to be made at some point. And that, at least, the sooner we can do that, the better. I think generically we blocked off this blue section up here, kind of represents our architectural engineering services. Generically, we blocked off an initial 12-week period. This is the list of all the things, just generically, that come to mind pretty quickly: energy modeling and net zero scope development, all the way down to just some basic plan refinement and making sure that we're not leaving anyone out, down to something that maybe is more complex in the discussion with something like the police department scope and what that actually ends up looking like on the second floor. There's also, on the other end of that 12-week block, we have some cost estimating that needs to happen, and then presumably a reconciliation period of probably 4 weeks where we take that cost, and because we know that costs are way higher than everyone wants them to be and expects them to be, that inevitably we're going to probably need to refine some stuff and find ways to come up with some options. And those items alone take up a pretty large block between now and November. I think John and I are in agreement that we're still on track with that option. But I think we do need to move fast. And I think our initial concern was that June, if the goal of a June select board meeting is to just get approval to continue to move forward with the current concept, that we're just going to be kind of spinning our wheels for quite some time when we really
I would use a different automotive analogy. I would say we'll be idling. Otherwise, we risk spinning our wheels and ruining the tires. But no, you know, we really would like, as you can see here, there's really not a lot of extra time to kind of do this right, and get you to that fall bond vote.
Yeah.
So we'd like to get started sooner than later.
Well, I don't think we're ready. Our next meeting is Monday.
Mhm.
So next select board meeting is Monday, and I wouldn't propose, I have a feeling that's going to be a busy agenda anyway.
Mhm.
What do you think it looks like for, it's May 15th is our next meeting, right?
Yeah, also busy, but do what we gotta do, we'll fit it in.
Uh-huh.
Well, I mean, there's two options. One is we sit and idle until you have that meeting. The other is that we start our work here and you tell us to stop if the select board kind of gives you a totally different read than what this committee is leaning towards.
Well, I can't see us putting this on the Monday agenda. Can you?
No.
This is like way
No,
too
no.
quick
Right.
for that.
I mean, go for the 15th. There's a lot of stuff, but there's always a lot of stuff. Like when people ask, what's a good select board agenda?
Yeah.
None of them. Just
right.
tell me what you need and we'll figure it out. Like,
Yeah,
really.
So how much time do you think you would need for a select board presentation? And you know, the key thing is any decisions that we need them to make.
Well, that's a really good question. I mean, we could go anywhere from 10-minute presentation to 2.5 hours, I'm sure.
yeah,
Depending on how
For 2.5
detailed we want to get with how we got to where we are. But I would think that we would say this committee has been meeting every 2 weeks, you know, for however long we've been doing that. And we've been through, you know, a good number of discussions and quite a bit of process. And here's the plan that we're recommending to you. And as we show it, we can explain why that is. But,
Mm.
you
So
know,
I would think a half an hour anyways. Half an hour is significant time at a select board meeting.
mhm,
You think you could fit it all in within a half an hour?
yes.
Yep.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you would limit us to 10 to 15 minutes of presentation.
yes,
Yes.
And
I
15
see that
minutes
too.
of-
And
of
15 minutes of
discussion.
discussion.
yeah.
You think we could do that on
May-
15? Let me try.
Sure, we get a few other presentations, but we'll do what we can.
Okay.
Yeah, and how much does the select board, how much of the background do we have to go into? How much does the select board know or not know?
I have been keeping them up to date, you know, I gave them like 5 or 10 minutes of the last meeting. You know, with, you know, dropping the bombshell of, you know, we're talking about the footprint of the building and not another building, and it's driven by the police department. I don't know how much they absorb of all of that.
Yes,
And I think we need to reiterate it anyways when.
yes, but we don't need to go into detail unless they ask.
No, you know, I think the key things are to highlight what we've done to date.
Yeah.
Which has included quite a bit of public process,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
quite, you know, visioning and all of that. You know, there's 4 or 5 different key decision points that we have needed to make in order to make any progress, you know, things like floodplain.
Yeah.
You know, the new versus.
Yeah.
Renovation, you know, those kinds
Which
of.
they've already blessed, so that's.
They've already
That's
had, they've
Right.
already had.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
that can be nothing more than we looked at options that included the full scope for all the potential tenants or occupants of the building. And the cost was deemed to be excessive, and we've trimmed the project back to be, what can we fit inside the existing building to preserve the site and to not impact the floodplain or not to actually trigger the floodplain constraints. We can say that, you know, the basement is no longer in play other than for storage. You know, and then show them the concept of the of filling out the first floor for the town offices, because those are going to be there for as long as the town exists.
Mhm.
And we wanted to do that the right way. And there were too many other variables with all the other potential occupants of the building. And show then what the second floor could be. Here's one option for it. I mean, because that's really one of the decision points for the select board here, right? Is
That's
whether,
exactly
Yeah.
is what's really, what are we going to put on the second floor? And we're suggesting that we're not ready to eliminate space in town for the police department. So this is a plan that increases, that roughly doubles the amount of space available to the police department. Does that
Yeah,
sound right?
There's one piece of new information. The Radiate Art Space.
Yes,
The executive director of that program is stepping down.
Yeah, I saw
And so
the
that
ad.
program is, in flux. It's the best I could say.
right.
So, but that's the kind of decision that we want to present to the select board is, we have space for town services, including the police department. We have space for the Historical Society and the Senior Center.
Yep.
We have space for
One other.
and probably
One major tenant.
Yeah.
additional tenant. And right now, MMCTV is really would like to continue, as far as I know.
Right.
And Radiate's in flux, and it might be useful to them to know that we might not have
Mhm.
room for them.
Yes, I think it's important for them to know.
It probably,
Yeah.
particularly at this time, this juncture in their, so that would be good for the select board to not only be aware of, but decide that, I think,
Mhm,
Right.
mhm.
Right.
So that's
and give us the go ahead.
Yeah, I like that idea of the town is taken care of.
Yeah.
And what is a little less sure are things that the select board is gonna have to think about, the tenants and the police.
Yep.
Footprint.
and I think it's important to reiterate both to the select board and to the audience that we have scaled back this proposal considerably from having really essentially eliminating new construction other than to support the existing
Just some wall.
footprint of
Yeah.
the building.
Right.
Mhm.
We would
So-
also have, Jeff, by then, a site plan that we could show them from Wagner Hodgson.
That
would
would be,
go a long
that
way.
would be very.
And that will
good.
get people really excited, right? Because
The
their
visual
drawings
of
are
it,
are
yes.
are compelling to begin with.
I
So-
remember how excited this library staff was about just seeing that we're gonna change the parking lot,
Yeah.
which everybody hates
Everybody hates parking.
to use it.
Right,
More green space and more parking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Everybody-
right. And we're going to try hard to make it so that there's a kind of a ramped entrance up to that first
Yeah.
floor of the library. So
right.
So anyway, so I
One-
think there'll be plenty to show to the select board here in an albeit limited way, that shows where we're at now and to get their blessing to kind of move ahead. In the short run, even before that, because we're talking, 3 weeks from now before that happens,
2 weeks, it'll be May 15th.
right?
2.5 weeks.
2.5.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll split the difference, Jeff. We'd like to at least, because our consultants are really busy, we'd like to have them at least tell them to put this on their agenda. I don't think they may not do much in the next 2 weeks, but at least by the time the 2 weeks is up and they
Yep.
haven't done much, they'll be ready to start.
Yeah.
But I'd like the mechanical and electrical guys especially to start thinking about.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes,
Eh, eh,
absolutely. I
right.
think that's a really good point, John, because no matter what we do, if we're going to do anything with this building, and I don't see us dissolving this committee between now and November. If we're going to do anything with this building, the mechanicals are going to be really important.
What so we're talking about the decisions that the select board has to make in a couple weeks. One thing that we've kind of touched on a little bit is the notion that there are also future select board meetings where we probably want to present more detailed information and get them to sign off on something more complicated, such as the second floor. I think as we kind of thought through that a little bit, one thing that challenged us are these two categories, the yellow being the select board decisions And then the blue being what you guys want to put in front of the public and potentially get more feedback as we refine, so that, and whether or not that's a necessary step. I know that we've always talked about having some time allotted to the, I forget what you dubbed it, Jeff, but essentially the project tour where you're going around the community and advertising and getting everyone's excited in the lead up to the bond vote. But
So not all
what
of that.
happens during, do you see anything that needs to happen this summer in terms of presenting stuff about the police station to make sure that we don't blindside and force a decision that
I would
really
think-
requires more?
I would think that,
Yeah.
2 months, 2 months of public engagement.
Yeah,
Summertime, nobody's going to come to a meeting in the summer anyway. But from September onward, we can do public meetings, and they don't all necessarily need to include you. I think that, if we have some pretty pictures and we can,
Answer the question.
present what the history has been, how we've gotten to where we are. And we can answer as many questions as we can, and what we can't, we can offer that we will be able to answer those questions.
Yeah.
But I think that, each of our respect, like I would expect you to present to the trustees.
the library trustees and maybe to the senior center, because,
Right.
Yeah.
And I would expect, I would present to the energy committee,
Right. Right,
and between now and then, we can brainstorm what other events, Karen, I think actually you'll be helpful in helping us think through that, what kind of community engagement might be helpful.
yeah.
Because we want to make sure that we're not blindsiding anybody. I think,
That's a way to get a negative
that's a way
campaign
to get a
going.
negative vote.
Be a good idea.
There's nothing you can do to not have at least one or two people say, I never knew you were even thinking about this project.
I know.
There's always going to be people that say that.
But,
Yeah.
this has been a process that's been going on for 4 years now, and we've had a considerable amount of community engagement, but it was early on.
Right.
It's time to get back and explain
Right.
where we've landed on this.
That's a good idea.
And your site plan is going to go a long way.
Yeah. The
That,
picture is, yes.
it'll be important to get that right, because
The
once you
picture,
took,
the picture and the number.
and the number, yes, and the number.
Those are the two things that people are going to pay attention to.
We
that
won't have a
actually-
number yet at this next meeting, but
No, I know. No,
Well, so you might be able to do a range. Is there any chance you could do a range by
Well,
that?
I think the thing that you might be useful is when that question comes up, is when we're talking to the select board, we'll have all the other plans available to us. But at one point, we did have, 5 options that we did put comparable
yeah.
numbers on,
those
right? And
Yeah.
that was why you chose not to do an addition, because we were looking at numbers as big as, I don't remember what they were, but they were,
I think
And
they got up.
11
lot.
million or something at one, the new building
The
was.
new building on another site was somewhere between 9 and 11, as I recall.
Right.
The addition on this site was somewhere between 6 and 8,
right.
like
And,
that.
and the no addition was, and you can give it another, we can give it another range at the time, and that will suffice. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At this
Yeah.
point, I think absolutely.
But again, not to blindside them later.
But,
Yeah.
we're not talking about 1 million. We're,
No, no.
my guess is we're talking, I don't know, 3 to 5.
I think it's more than that, but.
I'm not going to say right now, because I don't remember all the numbers that we had in there.
Nice, man.
I think we were in the 6 to 7
All right,
Yeah.
okay.
based off
Also,
of just the initial, but that was also not necessarily addressing certain things that something like the energy the net zero scope. That's something that we probably need to look at more detailed.
Right, but you could easily say that no matter what we do here, even without an addition, we're looking at $5 to $10 million.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But it's got to be less than the 9 to 11 that we projected for a new building somewhere else.
Right.
And it's got to be less than the 6 to 8 million that we projected by adding another 4,000 square feet on the site.
Right. So whatever the number is, we will come up with that number well before with a little research of what we've been through to
Yeah.
date.
Okay,
But again,
Okay.
that's what you're going to fall back on, is that we did do some of that, and we came to the decision that first off, we're going to stay on this site, And then secondly, that there was a way to provide some tenant space and the right amount of town space in this building without putting an addition on.
Yep.
And
So,
that you will get to the police department. I don't know how you will ever avoid the police department conversation.
We won't,
We haven't been able to.
no.
You don't want to know too much about the police
Yeah.
department at the moment.
I was
Oh,
reading the paper here, so I know what's going on.
Are you reading
Which paper?
from the forum, John?
Which
No,
paper?
no, I'm not doing that. I just saw the article that from your last meeting that said that you've now hired Heinsberg to cover
Oh, no,
some
that's
things.
worse.
No,
Much worse than that.
oh,
Yeah.
no.
Much worse.
All
You
right,
don't even
well,
want to know.
I
We won't
don't
get-
want to know. You're right.
Somebody could write a book about what we're doing with our police department.
All right, well, I'm
So
not
one
gonna
of
buy
things
the
that
book.
You guys need to know about is the timing for a bond. A bond
Right.
Right.
vote. And Linda, can you outline what that is?
Oh, I
Or do
wish
you-
I'd known this.
Do you want me to show you what we came up with in the minutes that you already came up with?
Yeah,
How's that?
I'll read what she wrote down.
Well, I mean, you can flesh it out maybe.
Yeah.
I think that's what we worked on with you and Josh.
Yeah.
Back in January of 2022.
I've got select board approves warning and a bond vote. Warning must be placed in 5 places 30 days or more before the election. Warning cannot be placed more than 40 days. Informational hearing must be within 10 days.
Mhm.
Hearing can
Yeah.
be held at a regular select board meeting.
There's additional requirements, though. If we're going to the bond bank, we need to notify them and have our lawyers review.
Gotcha.
Paperwork, yeah.
Yeah, I think Josh put 2 weeks in there to get the lawyer to actually review it and come back.
So what, how much
But
time?
some of that community stuff can happen after
same
we're in
time.
the
It can happen.
process
Right.
of getting the
Exactly.
bond vote set up too.
So it takes about,
That
months.
says 2 months, yeah.
It's a total of 2 months. It's
Yeah.
so like, what we need to be, how it's relevant to these guys is we need to be done.
mhm,
We need to be.
We
done
need a
with the
final
design
number with
Yeah.
the design,
yeah,
yeah.
2 months prior to the bond vote.
right.
Right, and that's and so that has to coordinate with a select board meeting to approve that amount,
That's correct.
approve the warning, so.
Yep.
So it's probably the middle,
That's September, isn't it? That's that's
Probably the
probably
first
our
week in
first-
September,
Sometime in
right?
September, depending on when in November. And it's probably, we're talking the first Tuesday, the normal.
That's before any of our public, engagement, but we can do the public engagement. We can still do it after the select board
Right,
approves it.
exactly. Let the select board do their thing and then you could start going out to,
So I think
Groups.
we'll want the first meeting in September, we'll need the select board to approve a number.
mhm,
Mhm.
and as you can see, what that does is that pushes that lower blue line that's on our chart back
Yep.
almost a month, 2 to 3 weeks. So it just highlights the fact that we need to keep going.
Yep. Our time schedule is getting compressed here.
It means that we don't have much summer vacation.
I'm already gone for 20 days, so in July.
Okay. So that's, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Is this a schedule that you guys can meet?
Well,
I just took 2 weeks out of my,
yes, we can do that. If we
Yes.
know now and we can get started right away, we'll work absolutely towards making this work. So, but again, I just wanted to use this to reinforce that, it seems like a long time, but we can't wait 4 to 6 weeks here to get going.
No,
Yeah.
no.
No, we need to go now.
Is there anything, so do you have enough to move forward over the next couple of weeks with things that you need to do anyways?
Yep.
Now,
And
as far as the mechanicals go, no matter what we do, we're gonna want to know what the at least what the base code is gonna require.
right. And I see that, I think I see that Josh has left the room.
He has, we have several crises going on. I don't know.
yeah.
Lovely. Anyway, I think one of the things that we could do is Andrew could come down and try to set up a time to chat with him and planning and zoning and with Linda, just to kind of verify the complete scope of the rooms that they want, and then we can start to kind of put together those layouts for the town office building. I think we'll want to wait until after the select board meeting to do anything more with the police department.
Yes.
That absolutely, it'll be a significant agenda item on Monday, I'll say that.
Yeah.
At some point, we're going to need to initiate more conversation with USPS.
Oh, yeah.
With who?
Oh, yeah.
Post office.
Yes, that's true. And
You
they
should do
will
that
not-
right away because they don't answer the phone very fast.
So
Yeah.
like,
Who do we?
what
talk
are we
to?
doing with them? So, I mean, the plans haven't involved them much. Much to my dismay, I would actually like to improve their space. I mean, they're a terrific tenant and I hope we can keep them indefinitely. But when you come in, let's see if we can nail down, we do have a permanent postmaster now.
Good.
And she's great, actually.
Yeah.
She's, lives,
Yeah,
she grew up in town.
Yeah.
She's great. And
she's good.
at least, and I'd love to get her excited about this project,
Sure. So
I'm not
the first,
exactly sure what we can do for them, but
right. Well, the first thing to do is to find out how much of their space we need for this mechanical room that we're talking about.
Okay.
And
they may
then,
not. I mean, there's really a lot of dead space back there.
Yeah.
right. So it may be worth it when if Andrew comes in is to just chat with her for the first time and walk through the space and saying, this is what we're looking at doing, and find out where she's thinking there might be some improvements that we might be able
You
to
want to
make.
schedule that meeting now, Andrew?
We can try to, sure.
Okay, so
Go
what
tell
we're talking
Jeff
about
what
is,
it is.
Yeah.
Do you want to,
you,
do
actually.
you want to reach out to her, Jeff, to make sure she's available, whatever
Here all the time.
day I come?
Yeah.
And yes, if we pick a date, I will talk. I'd like to be a part of that meeting.
All right, sorry, I had to step away, apologies. What are we looking at as a time frame for a meeting, Andrew? For myself.
Pretty flexible, probably early morning is always good.
Sorry,
like
we're
next
talking-
week
we're-
or
Next
what?
week, week after, sorry.
Oh, sorry, that type of time frame.
Yeah.
Next week, probably, next week might be a little bit difficult. Maybe the week after.
Week
Week
after,
after is probably better for me as well.
Okay.
I mean.
How about the
Okay.
16th?
when? That would be the week after that, 16th, you're saying?
Oh yeah, what are we on? Sorry.
You want the week of
Oh
the,
yeah, the 9th. Sorry, the 9th. I was, yeah.
Okay.
I was gonna
Nine,
say,
yeah, 9th, I could make work. You're thinking like.
I could
morning
make,
time?
I could make Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday of 8th, 9th, or 10th. If we want to be able to coordinate with the postmaster and see if maybe one
Okay.
of those works better for her.
So we want to pencil you in for like 8, you said morning is better usually?
early morning or mid-morning? Do you want 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock?
8's fine.
Okay.
Okay, 8 o'clock. How about we pencil it in for the 9th?
Or what if we do 8th then 9th and see what works for Aaron,
Okay,
right?
yeah,
Yep.
she could be off-site for a
Right.
post office thing,
Yeah, I think if we hold both of those dates, I got them on my calendar. And then Jeff, you said you'll follow up with Aaron?
yeah,
Yeah.
And I'll talk to,
Josh, if you can plan whatever day it ends up being, I'll stick around afterwards and walk through your spaces.
Okay, so yeah, apologies again for having to step away to take that call. So when you come here, you want to you're looking at the spaces for more refinement on like where would actual offices go, that type of stuff. Like we know this is the police station, but where would, okay.
Well, yeah, we're not going to be doing the police station though. It's going to be for
Yeah.
your folks, your staff,
Town artist only,
space.
first
And-
one, yeah.
probably
Okay.
Linda's too.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah,
Okay,
zoning,
Might changed.
does that time work for you?
Town clerk.
and maybe would it be helpful to have planning and zoning involved in that conversation, just since they know
Yeah.
what yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So once we finalize, we'll just invite all admin staff
Yeah.
to at least have an initial conversation.
Yeah.
This
And I
doesn't
might-
have to be all day. I mean, this is
No.
it's still a limited number of people and it's just not that complicated.
Okay,
Right.
yeah.
I might invite our
Yeah.
consultants just so that they can be in the building again too, if,
Okay.
And you're gonna want them to, the mechanical, engineer and, to walk through the building at that time too?
we need to talk with them. I was thinking more structural, if they wanted to look at anything specific. I know we had talked with, we met with them, this week, last week, I don't know.
One of those
Structural
weeks.
thing
And
that I'm interested in, is, whether the roof can handle solar panels.
the roof cannot, of the historic building.
Yeah.
I think their statement to us was to not assume solar would go on that roof. If we do solar on a roof, it would be the post office, but that needs addressing as well.
So I'd like to answer that question one way or the other. Whether that's possible, you know, it's a roof structure. That's probably one place you haven't been.
Not to the very
Maybe,
top.
maybe.
We were
maybe
up there.
We've been up there.
We've been up there, yeah.
They've been up there.
not- It's.
And that's why they were, they were
And they
it was
said
a little
no.
dubious.
Yeah.
Well, that's unfortunate. So, but, I might want to try to get estimates for a solar canopy or something. It would be good to have enough solar. I'm hoping 30 to 50 kW.
But again, the post office roof might be the place to go for that.
It's only one direction, it's only east.
Richmond has
Okay.
set the precedent of doing some canopies in parking areas.
Maybe.
elsewhere.
Okay, so do you have enough to work with right now? Okay,
Yes.
okay, I'll try to be at that meeting as well. I'll talk to the postmaster and see if she has a preference for one day or the other. And I'll let everyone know.
Great.
Thanks, Jeff.
Good.
Okay, okay, if we move on, you guys?
Yep. Okay, if we move on as well,
You can.
Yes.
great. All right,
So-
thanks, guys.
Have a good night.
Bye,
you.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
So next up is Diane Meyerhoff. She's our grant consultant. And she's gonna tell us where we're gonna find all the money for this.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, where to start? So I did send over, I hope Jeff was able to forward it to everyone, a preliminary project description and report on some of the funding sources. So would love feedback at some point, doesn't have to be today, about the project description, because that's a great thing to hand out to funders to let them know what you're going to do. And I often get asked for it. So it doesn't have to be every detail. As you can see, it was pretty broad, which allows us also to customize it for different grant applications. So just want to put that out there.
I did look at.
Yeah, go ahead.
Lori.
Yeah, I did.
In general, it looks pretty good. It's not, not terribly detailed. We can think about whether we'd want it
Mhm.
more detailed, but, I think you got the major point.
Grant
Okay.
funders are looking for brief these days, not extensive descriptions.
Yeah, at
That's
least
my
at the
experience.
beginning. Yeah, at least at the beginning. I mean, for this is just sort of to say, is this something you'd even be interested in? Is there something in here that lights you? So that was really the intent. I find often when you're really involved in a project, this is a really hard exercise because it's so general. So people
Yeah.
often are like, well, wait a minute, you left this out and that out. And I'm like, no, but think about if you know nothing about the project, you might not even know the community, right?
Yeah.
This is something to getting to know a little bit more about it. That was the intent.
Yeah.
I think you did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
We should post that on this webpage. As another document.
Once we get things answered, she's got a lot of blanks.
Oh,
Yeah, there
okay.
are a few questions that would be
Yeah, yeah.
nice to have answered. And I threw some names out there for you. I didn't know if you had a name for it. But it would be nice to have something we can call it. So I just threw a bunch in there.
What do I-
All right, Richmond Town Center Revitalization Project, Richmond Town Center's next 100 years, Richmond Town Center renovation, boring, but Vision 2023, 21, 23.
I did
don't
use some of this for
I like it.
the congressional discretionary spending grant.
Yeah,
Great. Great.
Would be a historic preservation grant. If we got it, it would be through the National
Yeah.
Park Service.
mhm.
If we got it, it'd be $500,000 and that actually would help,
Yeah.
retain some of our historic preservation elements, without that, Yeah, you know, I mean, I think we need to think long and hard about how much we go after historic preservation money. If that money comes with strings that are quite expensive,
Mhm.
you know, so getting
Yeah,
a
well,
$20,000 grant that costs us, you know, $200,000 is not necessarily a good investment.
Yeah, so yeah, aside from that, Jeff and I have had a little bit of an exchange about historic preservation. Now, my recollection is you were either eligible or you were on the state historic preservation register, right?
We're eligible for it. I can send you the letter from Devin Coleman.
Okay, well, the reason I asked is often once you've got, I guess, maybe a designation, then you do have to follow all the rules. The fact that you have such a historic building, I can't imagine they're going to let you, even if you don't have historic preservation money, would other federal organizations allow you to make changes, significant changes to the building?
Depends on how the grant, if it's HUD money, you have to follow historic preservation. I know that because
Yeah,
one of the library grants is HUD.
I
But
don't
it-
believe that we've gotten
Okay.
any historic preservation money for this building.
it doesn't necessarily matter though. I mean, sometimes if you're, the state has a lot of control here. So if the building is eligible to be on the state list, they often have to sign off on things before you can do them. So all I'm saying is it may not matter.
Mhm.
That's been some of my experience. It depends on what you want to do, for instance.
I
But
could
once you
ask-
have historic preservation money, then for sure,
Yeah,
all those rules apply. So in other words, I don't think they're gonna let you put vinyl siding on it, right? Like, no matter what. You know, there's some lines you can't cross, right? I
Probably,
just don't know what they are. Yeah.
you know, we've talked about having a funders conference, you know.
Yes.
I've talked several times about.
Yeah, and Diane and I just had a conversation about this.
So that might be, you know, a wise idea, you know, and, you know, I mean, I'm interested in the energy piece and that's oftentimes in conflict with the historic preservation piece. Which it
Yeah.
might be worth getting them in the same room and trying to
Yeah,
hash it out.
yeah.
I think it's a great idea. You guys mentioned USDA, State Historic Preservation, CDBG, put together by Preservation Trust. I also wouldn't mind adding a couple more to at least invite. And I don't know, I think Preservation Trust is taking the lead. Is that right?
Well, Ben Doyle, who's the executive director of Preservation Trust, happens to live in Richmond.
Great.
So he kind of offered to convene this for us. I haven't reached out to him yet because the timing now seems right. It didn't seem right.
Yeah.
You know, we were getting you on board and
Yeah.
now it feels like now is the right time. And we have enough concrete description of the project, which before we didn't even know if we were going to build a new building or if we were going to rent it. I mean, we had so few answers. So I don't know if you want me to reach out to Ben.
If you
and
wouldn't
see-
mind, that would be
you.
great.
And then
Yeah.
I can tell him that we're working with you. And maybe you can connect with him about other,
Well, so
Yeah.
I want to be careful about, you know, not having a funders conference that it's all historic preservation people.
no, this is CDBG, which is community, that would be Patrick Sheld. I've had a conversation, he knows about the project.
Mhm.
Because we were talking about it during my phone conversation. USDA, and they could answer a lot of questions about what do we even qualify for?
Yeah.
In terms of Richmond's,
Yeah.
you know, the income levels and do we even qualify for a grant?
Yeah. I question
What's
what
their
we-
loan things? Patrick was concerned about whether federal money, because it's in a floodplain, would even apply. That was you know, there's a lot of questions now. And the questions you just came up with about energy and historic
Yeah, I'd like to get
preservation and all that.
Efficiency Vermont.
Yeah, and Efficiency Vermont is tied in with Preservation Trust.
Yeah.
So, you know, and if there's other people, you know, I might even see if, yeah. I don't think there's any real HUD programs that we qualify for, but I haven't looked lately.
Well, that would be CDBG.
Yeah, they're gonna,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was thinking maybe,
The
Go ahead.
Housing Conservation Board,
yeah,
That's-
that would be historic preservation money, but still,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mariah, right?
yes.
oh,
Well,
Yeah.
she's not in that section, but her agency, yeah.
Or agency, but yeah.
I
I'll
was
reach out.
also, okay,
I'll
sorry.
just- I can just email Ben and say, Jenna told us you might, you offered to do this. We think we're ready. We're working with Diane as a consultant. Maybe the two of you should have a conversation and then we could start talking about some dates.
Great.
Because I think the same information that goes to select board would be perfect information
True.
to present to all of the funders. Typically, they like to do it on site so the funders can actually see the building.
Yeah.
And if we had a site plan and some kind of a cost range and yeah, that would be perfect.
So maybe, be shooting for the middle of the month after, May 15th.
Yeah, I don't know how fast this will happen, but yeah. But I'll reach out, I can reach out to Ben
Great.
and I'll
and
just copy you and I'll copy Jeff,
Yeah.
Jeff,
Yeah, I would love
Yeah.
to be at that as well.
because you talked to
Sounds
him.
I actually gave him a tour of the building.
Okay, so he knows about the project too.
And
That was-
I'm wondering also, how do you feel about inviting VITA, the Vermont Economic Development Authority? They have energy efficiency loans available to municipalities.
Yeah.
But I don't know the details or how the numbers look. Is that something you'd be interested in as well?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
So Vita, they offer low interest loans.
Mhm.
I didn't know that they did it for municipalities. I knew they did it for commercial projects.
I believe they do, but we'll ask that question to make sure, but I thought you guys would fit in with that, but we'll check. The other one also I'm interested in is ANR, that they have put in a proposal to EPA around the climate pollution reduction grants, that they were going to access that funding. And I can't figure out if it's funding that's going to the state and staying at the state, or if they're going to put it out into the communities. Have you heard anything, Jeff, about that?
I haven't, my understanding is they haven't formed the rules for that yet.
Oh.
The MERC, what is it, the MERC program?
Yeah, yeah.
Municipal Energy Resilience Program has been now set up. I don't know if they've gone out with an application process, but they are, so Buildings and General Services, I think, is doing that program.
Yeah, and that's the one that Josh and I sat in on we talked with Ann Janda at the Regional Planning Commission about. And I think you guys are moving forward on that. I'm not going to be involved in that one.
No, I thought that was one that they said we were really not going to score high at all because, right?
Yeah.
okay.
But I thought you
Hey,
might do it
Buffalo.
anyhow, because she was going to write it for you.
No,
No,
working on that. They have that equity screen that they're looking at, and they're trying to deploy the money to economically disadvantaged communities first.
Right.
no,
Yeah.
it's actually energy burdened communities.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't know if that's the same thing,
They're close, I
but
mean,
there's
it's-
no community in Chittenden County that is energy burdened,
Right.
apparently. Yeah.
and we probably don't need to deal with this yet. But my feeling on that is they have something on the order of 43 or $48 million for this program.
To not give any of it to Chittenden County.
Well, I mean, I think what will happen is that they're gonna, they want the first tranche to go out, to these energy burdened communities.
Yeah.
They won't spend all the money on that. And, and then,
Then they'll have
later in
to
the
broaden
year
it.
or next year,
Yeah,
they're gonna come out, they'll have to come out with another tranche. They have the same requirements that we have for ARPA. This is ARPA money.
Mm.
So it has to be obligated by the end of 2024. And that's coming up.
pretty soon, yeah.
And so where we score highly, I think, is that we're pretty ready to go.
Mhm.
So shovel-ready projects are they're gonna look more attractive
Yeah.
towards the end of the year. It's not necessarily an immediate thing, and any bond vote that we have, it should be. I think we're gonna have to bond for the entire amount. And with less any grant funds that we receive.
That's what I think we're gonna have to do.
And
Yeah.
we won't know all the grant funds that we might be eligible for before we go out to bond.
Right.
So
Even CDGB that goes
the same.
pretty quick, it's still 4 months.
Yeah.
In
so
4 months.
we will
month
not know.
increments.
Yeah, and
Oh,
Yeah.
it's like more like a year.
Yeah,
I mean, I have not heard anyone get a
Depends on
grant
which
agreement
one.
in less than a year. Well, that's true. The municipal facility one is quicker, but the regular one is long, long time. But tell me something. So the bond vote, you do the max. And then when will you actually start putting a shovel, spending that money? Like what's the timeline on the construction? Just to give me a sense of the long.
Hoping for, and this is still a hope, because trying to get contractors is still difficult.
Yeah.
Our hope is to have a bond vote in November. We're working towards that goal. We expect the bond vote to be like $5 million plus, something like that. If that bond vote is successful, we would hope to do construction next year. But that could be delayed depending on availability. That's a
There could be
possibility.
some work done,
There could be some work, maybe we do site work. I
site
don't know.
work and parking lot.
Parking lot improvements, we might stage it. So I think certainly my hope is that we begin construction in 2024.
Okay.
We have to, if we use ARPA money, we're supposed to spend it by the end of 2026. That shouldn't be a
Mhm.
problem.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
think so.
No.
No,
And have you finished your environmental review?
no, we haven't.
We have not done the environmental review. In
We
fact,
need to do that, actually,
we do need to do that.
because that's
forgot to mention
something
that.
John would,
Yeah.
yeah.
You have somebody who can do it though?
The architects will figure this out. It's a
Okay.
section 106. is that-
106.
Yes. Yeah. Because you'll need that before you can
the
spend any
other-
federal money.
Other thing
Talk
that's,
to them about that.
the other thing that's in there is that you have to have an ADA consultant. Sign
It's
off on some of
uh,
those grants.
Yeah, it depends which ones, but it's not a bad idea anyway. My guess is anything federal,
Well, we
that's
should ask John
likely.
about both, because
Okay.
I know,
Yeah.
I think CDBG requires both.
Okay, I'll
Yes,
ask.
CDBG probably does, yeah.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I know the historical folks, probably CDBG as well, might require a review by historical architect. They have specific people that have to sign off on your design, FYI. There's a list on the website. It's very small and they're hard to get a hold of. So if you think you're going to go for federal, especially HUD money, you might want to start thinking about that.
Mhm. The other two are probably more important because I see them on more grants. The environmental one is really important. And
Yes, yes.
And Diane, could you send me the link to where that list is?
Sure, yes.
yeah, I know the ADA consultants, that is a list for that too, I think.
And they're also hard to get to.
That's
They're all
specific-
hard to get. Yeah.
It's on the state. I'll look and see if I can find it. It's
Yeah.
a-
I mean, they're hard to hire. I mean, I'm sorry, that's what I meant. They're hard to get to do the work. I've been
2
warned.
years to find a historic building reviewer for the library.
Really?
working
Yeah.
For us, because everybody was busy.
And I think that still continues for better or worse, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Now, I'm just going through as any other questions. Do you all have any questions for me at this point?
So at this funders conference, when do you think, I was pushing for later on this month. Do you think that's too soon? Do you think June?
I'm sorry, to actually to hold it?
Yeah.
I think whenever Ben feels like he could get his people together, don't you
Yeah,
think?
I mean, for us, I think the sooner the better, but I think it's all about, this is a tough one to schedule, I would think.
Yeah.
we
I mean, if some people might Zoom still, but I agree, I'd rather have everyone in the room.
Yeah.
To see the
Let me
building?
just reach out to Ben and I can ask that general question.
Yeah,
Typically, how long, do you think? I don't want to get into summer because people are gone.
Right.
right,
So,
right, no, absolutely, yeah, yeah.
say basically we're ready anytime after May 15th.
And what I'll do is I'll talk to Jake about EVT, maybe.
Yeah, although Ben, I mean,
Okay, if he's,
VET, Vermont Energy VEIC was like at the.
Yep.
At the energy, the workshop I went to, all these people were at that workshop, so I assume they all work together. I can mention we want to include VEIC.
Yeah, so I think The sooner the better. I was wondering, when you have the presentation to the select board, is that something that you guys videotape? You tape?
Yeah, all of our select board meetings are videotaped.
Because if it's a really awesome presentation, we might show it at the
Yep.
all funders meeting.
Yep.
Just a thought.
Yeah.
Or if they'd be willing to do something on the TV, like if they would do something on your
We might invite the architects to come to that. that is-
MMTC, maybe they could do a little presentation that we could
Sure.
tape and have it, something like that. I do a lot of work with the station up here, and they're great to work with, and I'm sure they would.
are.
We don't need a big long thing, but it'd be nice to have them just talk, like I say, 10 or 15 minutes about the project that we could just show it at the meeting.
Yeah.
Just a
And we
thought.
could have a Zoom option if somebody wanted to participate but didn't want to travel.
Yeah.
Sure. And that may happen. Yeah, especially as you say, if it's too tight. But yeah, I'd say anytime would be great. There's a couple of days in June I won't be here, so I will send those dates. Well, I can talk to Ben about it, I suppose, whatever's easiest.
Mhm.
Okay, so can we sign you to try?
I'm gonna email Ben. I'll
Get us
CC
started?
You guys.
Yep.
Well, if I CC you and ask him to reply all, he can,
Okay, great.
yeah.
Yep. And I'll pick up the ball from there and talk to him as well.
Yeah.
So
And if people
we'll be in
want to meet
touch.
before that, I mean, he's local, so,
Yeah,
yeah,
happy to do that.
yeah,
Okay, this
Good.
feels like a lot of progress here.
yeah.
I hope so.
Need anything else from us, Diane?
No, I think I'm good. Oh, well, go through the project description. Somebody mark up some notes there for me, if you can.
Mock up some what?
Notes.
Mark up the project description. You have some thoughts.
You and I can
Clean
do
it
that.
up.
Amy and I'll do that.
Okay, and then it'll be all ready for our, for the meeting. That would be nice to have that in advance to everyone.
That'd be great. That'd
Okay,
be great.
good.
Okay.
All right.
It would look really good, really thorough.
Oh, good. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Good.
I think
All right.
we'll move on to our next agenda item. which
I
think
will
is-
sign off. Thank you both. Thank you all.
So our last meeting was consequential, I would say.
Yeah.
A significant vote.
Yep,
I'm so happy it was unanimous.
Yeah.
So any other comments on did people get a chance to look at the meeting minute?
Which apple tree are you talking about saving?
Right out, like straight across there, behind the library.
Behind the library, yes. Yeah, cousin, yeah. Ann and Barry cousins, yes. Not the front one. We could get rid of that one in front of the library. Oh my
I was gonna
God.
say,
Although Mary will have an opinion on it.
No, but we
it
used
makes
to
such
have
a mess.
somebody who came and took those apples
Yeah.
and made cider, and then she
Oh, yeah.
stopped doing it.
Oh,
And she would call every year and say, can I come get the apples? And we would say, sure.
yeah.
And
Now
now
there's-
she's not doing it and
Yeah.
it's making a mess.
I think we can probably, the cousins apple tree.
She asks me about it every time I talk to her.
I know you can't.
When she heard we were doing this, she said, but you can't take the apple tree out.
Well, I mean, it's important, right?
It is. It is important.
Okay, so,
Okay,
are the meeting minutes, they look okay to everyone?
I move to approve.
Okay,
Second.
okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're good.
Okay, good.
Okay, it sounds like we have, let's try to go over what our agenda is for next meeting.
Okay.
Lori's gonna report on our funders conference.
Yep.
Um,
When is our next
was-
meeting?
Some more, there was some more significant report too, right? That Andrew and John were gonna prepare. Was that for the ARPA? Was that the cost differentials between
Oh,
of building? I remember them feeling like
yeah,
we.
That's complicated. So
Okay.
in order to do that, what you need to do is you need to finalize what the design is,
Mhm.
the model of building,
Okay,
for what that is, and we're not there.
We're not there
We
yet.
need We need the mechanicals for
Okay.
that. And then, model it for, a base level, and then, a higher efficiency
Okay.
standard, whatever that is.
right.
That's complicated. That's why I like this idea of solar, but I'm disappointed with the
Mhm.
roof,
Yeah, but it doesn't take much to make your roof not hold solar because our house won't.
This roof is like super complicated. I mean,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
took the
Yeah,
you know,
okay.
I took some of them up there. I don't think it was a structural engineer, but I took some of them up there and it's like, wow, there's a lot of valleys up there. that
Yeah.
are Weird.
Yeah, okay.
But
So next,
you know, so you know, I can report on, Josh and I can report on the meeting with, the staff
yeah,
and the architect.
Mhm.
yeah,
We'll need to prepare for the select board presentation at that point.
yeah. And when is our next meeting? I don't have my calendar.
That would be May.
Is it the second? No,
Uh,
11th?
Yeah, May 11th.
No,
Well,
11th, the 10th is the library.
Yeah.
Isn't the 11th?
no, the 8th is the library.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, the
okay.
10th is a Wednesday.
Okay,
The
so
11th is a
May
Thursday.
11th. So just before, if we're
That'll be
on
right
the
before-
select board, that's
Yeah.
good timing.
And the following Monday is the next, is the
Yeah.
15th select board.
And I can. And, we should get an update from, Andrew. About the, environmental review, where that fits on, and, ADA. I'll talk to them.
The
about-
the 106 and the ADA, yeah, can they, or I'm sure they know what they are, but yes. Do they go ahead and do that? And we should be doing that. That was one of the comments about
I don't
from
think that'll be
the,
hard, actually. The ADA won't be hard. I think.
no, the environmental review will be.
The environmental review could be more complicated, although they can do it with surprisingly quickly.
It's just getting the approved
Mhm.
person to do it.
Yeah. Well, I'll, you know, and I'll see if
The-
they have.
At
experience.
that library grant meeting, they were recommending that people get a whole, if they had a project, they should have an environmental review ASAP because it took a long time to get them right now.
Hmm,
That's what she said.
okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay.
are we
Sounds like.
done? It sounds like a full agenda for
Yeah.
next week. Yeah,
Okay.
Yep.
Anything else?
Oh, I don't think so.
Great. I think we stand adjourned.